Good afternoon, John.
Hey, Marty.
First podcast of March 2021.
Wow.
Yeah.
Keeps getting better.
It does. It does. So we were talking before we hit the record button about desire, wanting, getting what we want. We talked about a little bit about the role of the four constants. So maybe start talking about the power and centrality of desire in creating the world and the lives that we want. And that I'm always doing that anyway.
Yeah. So am I, and I always have been. Only I didn't have a clear picture consciously of what I wanted.
Exactly.
I knew a lot about what I didn't want, which was most of that was you in my face. And and when I finally was able to sit still long enough to hear the question, and it came from an indirect source. It wasn't what do you want, it was what is your bliss, from Joseph Campbell. What lights you up? What activity are you doing that while you're doing it you lose track of time? And I heard that question finally, and I was reading the book Power of Myth, and he actually spelled it out in talking to one of his students. He said, he asked him, what's your bliss, or what do you enjoy? And the student said, I don't have time for that. I've got bills to pay. I've got stuff to do. And he said, when you follow your bliss, when you find your bliss, the money will follow. And I heard that. That was like something clicked in me. So I started asking myself, what do I love to do? And I was 3 months into recovery. And the first thing I really enjoyed doing was talking about recovery, talking about my addiction and or dysfunction for the purpose of healing and moving through. And the other thing I really love to do, which I did most of my life, was work with my hands, carpentry, craftsman, artwork, putting things together, sometimes tearing things down, but working with my hands. So that's what I came up with. I love to talk to people about recovery, and I love working with my hands. And what I've discovered, 92, that was 29 years ago, I can make a living doing both. The money absolutely follows. It's been my experience that if I talk to people, do what I love to do, talk to people about recovery, opportunities come up that would not normally have come up if I was doing what I thought I had to do, which was make money or provide or whatever it was that I thought I was doing. All the opportunities to enrich my life, not only monetarily, but emotionally and spiritually, and enrich the lives of other people, followed that simple answer. I love to talk to people about recovery, or I love to work with my hands. And I've made a living pre my recovery and about halfway through my recovery working with my hands. And now I'm making a living talking to people about recovery. So
I found a similar thing. It was just about 29 years ago. I was just doing the calculation. Only I didn't come to that through Joseph Campbell. I came to it through the Celestine Prophecy. Remember the book?
Oh yeah,
Celestine Prophecy. for those who haven't read this book or heard of it, it's basically it's a story about breakthrough and transcendence, and it's based on 9 insights that the author says are just like our principles that we have here in the accountability practice. And I remember one of the insights was that we all have a mission in life, and our mission is an amalgamation of the mission of our parents.
Yeah,
My dad has a mission, my mom had a mission, and somehow their children's missions are just like the DNA gets combined at the physical cellular level, then at the psychic level, the missions get combined. And I didn't quite grab that as making any sense, knowing what I thought I knew about my parents and myself. But I did have this insight, a version of that, which was that somehow I was born with a directionality for my life, and that directionality had been guiding me, even though I was not aware of it. And I was around 40, and so I decided that if I could see all the places in my life where I came to a fork in the road and I chose left or right, that if I could see the pattern of choosing left or right over time, it would tell me something about my bliss. I didn't use that word, but I was thinking, what's my mission or purpose? So I actually sat down and wrote my autobiography so that I could see all of those branching points. And what I saw was very, in the same way you saw 2 things for yourself, I saw 2 things for myself. Number one, I love talking about psychospirituality, which parallels what you were saying about talking about recovery.
right.
I didn't have recovery yet, but now I do.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing was I loved politics and government.
Mm-hmm.
And I made my career in politics and government right after that. And then I began to realize that the intersection between those 2 things was using self-discovery and self-awareness to govern life. And again, I didn't have intentional living as the process yet, but intentional living is about choosing how to make my life, how to create my life intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
So here I am 29 years later,
Mm-hmm.
just like you, doing what I love to do. Um, and I actually get paid. I'm the minister at my church, so they pay me to give talks about these things on Sunday. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
it
So,
works.
and so the first question that I ask people that come to an intentional living group, whether it's in the outpatient clinic I work, or it's in a workshop or a group, what do you want? What is it? And I couch it in a way, and I add something to it. I say, what do you want that you do not have?
Right.
Identify something that you're longing for, or that you want, or that or that you may envy in other people, a quality or an aspect or a sense of peace or groundedness. And that focus, what I've discovered from my experience and from teaching this, it gets people to lean forward. So there's something internally that opens, and you're paying attention. You're focused on something. Usually that something is me. And the dialogue starts, and the information. Einstein said you cannot solve a problem with the information that created the problem. And most people come to intentional living or 12 steps with a problem that is insurmountable, and they've discovered I need help. So when I assist them to identify something they don't have, and then I explain to them what I've discovered, what was blocking me from, first of all, even asking what it is I want, or in my everyday life, saying I want something specific, like I want to be sober, I don't want to drink, and then find myself year after year struggling with this drinking problem. or I don't want to be angry at my spouse, or I don't want to be mean to my children, and find myself time after time doing those things that I say I didn't want to do. And explain the mechanism that's the obstacle for me having what I want that I don't have. That's real, that's specific. I don't know the clarity of it. And the information that I got, and I'm hearing you got, was on a visceral feeling level. So that experience of me going, oh my God, I love to talk to people and work with my hands. And that realization was an embodiment of a new idea. And that's I want to say simple, although profound, new idea led us both to places we couldn't even figure out how to. I mean, I didn't figure out how to be here with you. Right. I didn't do the how of this. And that's where it gets, we say it's cosmic, but I want to say it's human. That this mechanism provides us with the opportunities to manifest. I was at a church one day, and the minister said, there's one thing you cannot not do. And she got my attention. And then her one word statement was manifest. You cannot not manifest. And I got that. I got that I can manifest misery, separation, loneliness, broken relationships. I've manifested those really, really proficiently. But if I cannot not manifest, my first thought at the time with the information I had is, oh, what do I want? What do I want? What if I'm focused on what I want to create? Somehow, some way, it works. It starts to happen, or at least I can see how far from what I want I am, and that's good information. That information gives me direction. Not knowing what I want, I have no direction. It's like I don't know where I'm at. If I see that, if I see clearly that there's something I don't have, that gives me direction. Not knowing that I can even ask for what I want or acquire something leaves me directionless. And I use the example of walking into a mall, and every pillar has a map, and all it says on there is you are here. All the merchants in that facility believe it's really important that you know where you're at. So if that's true, why isn't it important that I know where I'm at? And if I know that right here where I'm at is away from what I say I want, that gives me direction. That gives me a solid starting point. That's the first step in a 10,000 mile journey. And it works. And people, like I said, they lean forward.
I'm leaning forward here too, because as you were talking about what your minister told you, you cannot not manifest. I think it's important also for us to recognize that we cannot not want. We cannot not desire.
Right.
And I've sat in meetings for hours and hours with people say, I don't know what I want. I can't tell what I want, which is fine. Well, like you said, that's good information. But oftentimes that's a manifestation of something deep inside me that says I'm not allowed to want. I can't have what I really want, so I'm not even going to bother with it.
Yeah.
But you can't not want. I mean, desire is just like survival. Desire is built into the organism when it's born.
And I think that's part of the, and don't correct me if I'm wrong, that's part of the Ken Wilber spiraling developmental stages that we find ourselves in. And the profound thing that I learned from Ken Wilber is that as I grow, I don't disregard what happened. That is the foundation for this. And right. This is now an integral part of this. And consciousness our evolution as human beings, if you're a history buff, you can see the different levels of awareness that people have gone through, from tribalism, I'm part of the group, to, and you can probably explain this better, I'm an individual. I probably missed a couple of parts, and I have agency. And then how do I have agency and then still be in community? And that's the American experiment, right. I believe.
Well, the another thing that Wilber says, which is what we work on in accountability. So I'm actually, I don't know if I've said this on this podcast before, but I'm actually writing a book integrating the work of Ken Wilber with the work of John Donovan, because I think that for me, Wilber provides this great framework and this understanding of where we are in this great chain of evolution, or another way of saying is where we are in God or the higher power or whatever. But what you bring to it is the capacity to access and be with where we are, and to use the gifts of millions of years of evolution that have created human being to consciously manifest the world that we live in. That wasn't available to our ancestors. This is part of an evolutionary unfolding. But what Wilber says is that, like you said, as we grow, we theoretically transcend and include all the earlier stages. But he also says that growth is impeded when we don't include the earlier stages, and then I add, he doesn't say this, but I say, you have to integrate those earlier stages.
Yes.
So that they become a holistic part of us. We have access. I have access to the tribal belongingness. But the challenge is, if we don't integrate those things, then those earlier stages will pull us back. They'll try to pull us back to the earlier way of being, rather than work with us to transcend to the higher level. So in a practical perspective, that means if I have childhood trauma, then the stage of development I was at when I was 2 years old never truly gets transcended, because the unhealed energy keeps trying to pull me back.
Yes.
And I see this in myself time and time again. I think we talked about this a little bit last week, that when some stress element shows up in my life, the judgment that immediately arises in my mind is a 2-year-old's judgment.
Yeah.
You're bad, this is screwed, I'm screwed, I have to run away, whatever. So that's an example of, until that gets healed, I can't be truly fully myself. So that, because now, to talk about, or to put it in the terms that we started this conversation, the desires, the wants of a 2-year-old are conflicting with the desires and the wants of a 69-year-old. And so the work that we do here, the practical gift that you brought to my understanding of development, what I can call the improvement on the Ken Wilber work, is that I actually have tools to work on that transcending and including and integrating, so that that little 2-year-old energy, which is working perfectly, that 2-year-old energy is working perfectly to keep a 2-year-old safe. And now I don't need that safety anymore as a 69-year-old. So now I have tools to integrate, to become aware, to transcend with love and inclusion, so that now at this stage in my life, and I know this is true for you as well, I recognize these energies when they arise, and they no longer are in charge. I have tools to integrate them. Because until I came to work with you, I was just always fighting it. I was fighting without realizing what I was doing. I lived in a constant state of what I call the internal civil war. There was always war going on in my head.
Yeah.
Against myself.
Against yourself.
And of course, that gets mirrored in the world around me. So the world around me seems to be at war all the time.
Yep.
And so what's peace? Well, if you'd have asked me the very first time I met you, and you said to me, what do you want that you don't currently have? I probably wouldn't have gone to anything essential. I might have said, you know, a Cadillac or something superficial, because I never would have given myself the belief that I could have profound faith, profound peace, profound connection. It wouldn't have occurred to me, because my internal war would not have allowed that to come into consciousness.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, my answer was talking to people and working with my hands, which is what I love to do. And then when I finally got to what do I want, it was peace of mind. And what I meant by peace of mind was for that in what you're describing as internal war to shut down just for a minute, just for a second, just so I could have some peace up here where I wasn't riddled with have to, got to, should, how come I, why did I do that? How come they're doing this? And on and on and on. And I found it. I actually experienced moments where this wasn't going. And then I could ask for something deeper, broader, like it is my intent to live in peace. Wow, it's like, and I had no idea what peace really was. I just knew I wanted something different than I had. So I named something. And peace has, when peace is uttered or articulated, there's a vibration, and that vibration is what peace is. Now I'm moving into that vibration, and what I've discovered is what I used to call boredom is a modicum of peace. It's actually serenity and tranquility. But I from this experience, the only thing I could say that it was that made any sense to me was boring, nothing to do, unexciting, and it took me a while to, oh my God, this is what I'm asking for. So, and this mechanism you're talking about, this childhood trauma, actually turns what's being done, the dialogue which is happening in the present moment has to match the trauma. So I was also looking for a loving, caring, nurturing partner. So, and every time the partner I had at the time either asked me a question or questioned something I did, I would see that the question itself as an attack. And then as I moved and I articulated, it is my intent to be in a loving, caring, nurturing relationship. The woman in my life said the same things, and now I interpret it as what nurturing and loving. And let me give you an example. The question that used to rock me out of my center was, where the hell have you been? It's like, what? Who are you talking to? And I felt emasculated after creating the intent to be in a loving, caring, nurturing relationship. And somebody said, where in the hell have you been? What I saw in front of me was somebody concerned about my welfare. And it was the same thing. And I couldn't recognize it. I had no idea that that's what I was asking for. If I had an idea that that was what I was asking for, I wouldn't have asked for it, because that meant something completely different to me than loving, caring, nurturing. I had no idea loving, caring, nurturing. I thought it was everybody leave me alone, everybody's okay. No, it's this actual capacity to be in conflict and rubbing against somebody who is different, that we both choose to be there. It's like, what? Wow, I'd never guessed that. And this intent, what I wanted in this creative mechanism, manifesting mechanism, actually gave me the opportunity to see it, to manifest it out of thin air. It wasn't there before, and nobody changed. Nobody did anything different except for how I perceived their actions. It was incredible, just mind-blowing, incredible. So,
well, I was thinking about that in terms of desire. So it's possible that even though I don't know what peace is, because I grew up in a conflicted, violent household, so I could have peace and violence easily confused with each other.
Right.
Or I don't know what unconditional love is because I didn't have any of that either.
Right.
I still think that human beings have it as a natural state through our desire body to experience those things, even though we don't know what they are. I pick up that a little bit because I heard you say that even uttering the word peace has a vibrational quality to it that's unique. And somehow that vibrational quality summons the presence or the manifestation of peace, even though if I'm left to my mind, I'm not going to have it.
No.
So it brings to mind the biblical passage about the peace that passes understanding. I don't understand this,
Right.
but it's there.
And it's there.
And I'm experiencing it. And then what I heard you say is once I have experienced it, I can now look back at it with my mind and say, oh, that's what that was.
Right.
But the experience always comes first.
And that's why we're built as human beings. We notice the difference. We have 2 eyes so we can have depth perception. We have 2 ears so we can direction. So we're built to notice the difference. That works for survival. That works to keep us, has worked to keep us sentient on the planet for however long, many years you believe we've been here. It is the accumulation of the 5 senses for survival. And now, developmental stage, we're moving into a consciousness and creative place, ascension, however you want to call it, as a group. And my individual journey is to integrate that old, I don't even say old, it's part of who I am, that foundation of survival, because I still want to survive, to circumvent this somehow and thrive. And I call it cooperate instead of compromise. From this position, I was always compromising from my 5 sense position, survival mode, inner child wounding. I was always surviving. In the mode I find myself, adding to the 5 senses, the emotional, the emotionality that I am, which is another sensing organ to give me information about what's going on behind this. So the question, even the question, where the hell have you been? When I first sensed it, it was 5 senses trauma. And then I heard it 5 senses emotion, added the emotional. I listened to my emotions. I'm an emotional being. And the same words meant something completely different, filtered through the new pool of information that I developed through my experience as a child, and then the healing I received and the reframing of the trauma to be able to receive in real time something I couldn't have named from the place I came from.
One of the improvements that human being brings to this work of consciousness is with the development of the neocortex. So you're talking about the brainstem, the limbic system, which is where the survival and then the emotional activity resides, and then we have this neocortex. I can't do the hand movements that you do as well when you did that thing like this, but
yeah, it's this and the
right,
brainstem, midbrain.
Right. But what the neocortex gives us is the capacity to see ourselves. And not only the capacity to see ourselves so we can do self-reflection, but because we all share that capacity, we can also use our collective space to enhance how we see ourselves.
Yes.
Because I sit in a group and the members of the group see me, I'm seeing me, the member of the group seeing me, and then I can ask the group what they see,
right,
and enhance the information that's coming in through the self-reflectivity. It's that capacity for us to see ourselves, to experience ourselves, to name what's going on that gives us the possibility to create something else.
yes.
Because if I can't see it, it's going to be hard for me to manifest it.
Right. And I couldn't see it because of the reactionary mode, the trauma and the denial of my emotional body, and then the information from my five senses. I was not able to, and I'm going to use the word reserve judgment. There's another word I'm looking for, to just hold off on the judgment just for a second, split second, and then feel. And
Right.
that tells me more than what I pick up from my five senses.
Right.
A plethora of new information. It's profound how much information is beyond the five senses in this emotionality that I've now incorporated into my life.
Right. And part
So
of the
that,
reason that makes this tough is that a 2-year-old does not have the capacity to reflect and see any of that. So as a 2-year-old, I'm under threat. All I can do is survive.
yes,
Thriving is not, it's not in the ballpark. I have to
no,
grow and develop the capacity to see, reflect, ask questions. What do I want? In order to move beyond that stuckness that trauma creates for me and for all of us to one degree or another. And so that the many human beings go through our lives where we never have this breakthrough where can see past a certain a world circumscribed by childhood trauma.
right,
And we just act out, we project, we do the thing, and we don't ever feel liberated from this original sense of the world that we grew up with. So the accountability practice, I've heard you say this before. I know it's not the only way, but it's certainly the way that resonates for me as a way to use my gifts as a human being to work with my higher power to create an intentional life, a life of joy and bliss. That's always been my birthright, but I could not see it.
right,
I could not feel it. And
right.
so I couldn't use those tools. It was like they were in the closet somewhere, waiting to be brought out and applied.
Yeah. And you having the capacity to create joy and bliss in my awareness now, in my capacity to generate peace, is not dependent on other people.
Correct.
And in childhood, the developmental stages that I know that I missed was the capacity to emotionally regulate, impulse control, frustration tolerance, and delayed gratification. So I'm an adult that doesn't have this foundation of emotional integration, emotional regulation. I don't have this capacity to control the impulse, and that gets dangerous as a 71-year-old, 230-pound man. That can be dangerous, especially when I was younger. It caused a lot of havoc, and it was simply a foundation that I had missed, and I was trying to be an adult without the qualifications for the foundation that created the capacity to think clearly and include not just myself, but other people in my decision-making process. So my sphere of influence went from pre-recovery, or my sphere of concern was me, my truck, and my gun rack. Screw you, stay away. To a global concern. It's inclusive because I now have the capacity to be with somebody who is going through their process of emotional regulation, frustration tolerance, and just simply observe it without taking it personal, without being associated back to 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 8-year-old responses that were dysfunctional, that didn't have the foundation to grow and intentional living starts there. It creates intentional living is a beginning point for everybody in their unique, genuine, singular experience to manifest what they love, which is me manifesting what I love is my contribution to my community. Me being at peace is my contribution to my community, because I can now be of service. I can choose to cooperate and not see it as being a victim. I can choose to do things I really don't want to do, knowing that it will grow and enhance my relationship with whoever, my grandson, my daughter, you, my coworkers, the people I work with. Yeah.
And what's going on from a perspective of Ken Wilber is when that is happening, I'm no longer merely identifying as this particular individual, but I'm starting to identify as humanity as a whole. And I see you in me, or I see myself in you, and I no longer fear that.
Right.
I no longer push it back. I say, I want to know more.
Yes.
Because regardless of what you're going through, and it may frighten me. It may be something really violent. It could be something homicidal, or even genocidal, but it's human.
Yes.
And so to the extent that I let go of the need to protect myself from imagined external problems and enemies, the more I open to the possibility that that's me as well, then again, for me, the experience is peace increases, fear decreases, my capacity to be with others and more increases, because somehow, and I can't tell you how this works, but somehow I'm not just merely into identifying and protecting this anymore.
Right.
This person. It's like I have come to peace with this person, so now I'm free to play with all persons.
Right.
May sound a little poetic, but I wanted to talk about the relationship of desire to intention setting. There's something powerful when I set an intent. So again, for the newcomer, the process of accountability is when I come across something that's stymieing me, frightening me, causing me to react or behave in ways that I say I don't want to do, but I'm doing it anyway. It's to be able to access the truth of what's going on and the emotional resonance behind that. And as I feel the truth, as I've shared in this podcast, I like being in debt. I like being behind the 8 ball. I like that I get excited. I'm alive when I owe all kinds of money to people. And so that the truth is, I don't think I'm good enough to be prosperous.
Right.
So I just like being in debt. And I can feel that there wasn't, when I first came aware of that, there was a deep emotional resonance in my body. We could use the word shame. It doesn't matter. It was the emotional resonance that was the power. And in that emotional resonance, I now, at the invitation of my facilitator, or as I'd learned it to do it for myself, I say, okay, what do I want?
Mm-hmm.
And as I now allow the answer to rise, because that was one thing I really learned in this process, is like, don't let my head answer that question. Allow my body, the emotional resonance, to produce the request. Mm-hmm. Now I say, okay, I want to feel prosperous. Okay, so I intend to feel and be prosperous. So that intention is now incorporating that new desire, is it not?
Yes.
So this power of desire is always working. Now I'm harnessing it intentionally.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And desire is the creative energy.
Right.
It's a creative force. It's tapping into source. I don't know. It's the manifestation. It's the rocket fuel. It's the nitro behind the manifestational process force. I have manifested in my life the capacity to command respect. And when it happens, it's like I can hold that, knowing that people respect me is in alignment with what I know true about me. Before my recovery, I expected people to degrade and deprecate, and that was a validation of the old information. So when I got my thing was arrogant and mean. So when I owned arrogant and mean, my need to be validated as worthless left. And my intent, arrogant and mean, was I intend to be kind, I intend to be forgiving, I intend to forgive myself. And those intents, which are directives to this desire center reticular activating system survival mechanism in the brainstem and midbrain, simply now vibrate with that information, and it's drawn to me, and I find myself cooperating. I find myself holding somebody else in esteem, where whatever they're saying to me is an invitation to slam them, and I simply don't. Before anybody gave me an invitation to slam them, I would gladly just do it because that's the way I thought of myself, and I just simply don't do that anymore. It's not in my field of experience anymore. Now, the awareness that I'm arrogant, the awareness that I was wounded is still there. So that's that foundational, we don't get rid of anything, that becomes the fodder or the foundation for this capacity to be cooperative. Let's just say cooperative. So without this awareness, without this experience of arrogance and entitlement, when I look at arrogant entitlement, I can have compassion because I'm seeing myself. I'm seeing myself in a stage of my life where somebody was gracious enough to me to go, whoa, John, it's okay. It's okay. You're all right. Instead of, you dumbass, or what the hell are you talking about? And I can now provide that for other people.
Yeah. So for me, the if I'm following what you said accurately, for me, the old tape defense mechanism is still there in the sense that you may say something and my first thought may be, oh, you dumbass.
Right.
But where I am now is like, I noticed that just showed up. Say, oh yeah, there's that old tape. So now that thought, you dumbass, instead of being an invitation to create distance, becomes an invitation for me to ask for something differently. So I turned that, this is often what we say in 12 steps, I turned my character defect into a character asset. Right. Same thought shows up in my mind, same reaction, but I no longer follow through with a behavior that is commanded by that thought. Instead, I create something else. I intend to create connection with this person. So let me take a breath, step back, and withdraw my projection so I can stay present with what this person is saying. And it's, it took practice. It took years to do that, and it's there.
Yeah.
And so I very rarely find myself compelled into unconscious behavior anymore.
Right.
Again, I freely own that the reaction still shows up just the way it always did, but I no longer just follow through with a behavior. Mm-hmm. And so
the way the 12 step, there's promises, 12 promises. And one of the promises, this is how I read it, right, is that I will come to a life I never knew possible. And where I find myself in my capacity to be with people and be inclusive is something I couldn't have delineated. I couldn't have described this in any detail whatsoever, right, because I had no idea what it was. And the intent moved me into a place I didn't know. now that I'm here, I have this sense of it, and it's incorporated, it's integrated into how I present. It's just
both internally and externally.
yes.
Right.
And
So for the newcomer, I want to point out, I want to own that this might sound like a bunch of mystical mumbo jumbo. And I think both of us would freely admit that there's often aspects of this work that we do that's difficult to explain in rational terms. And part of it is that all of life requires some form of a faith walk, regardless of how old we are, regardless of the circumstances. There's just a limit to what empirical information can tell us. There's a limit to what empirical information can prove to us. At some point in time, I just had to say, you know what? This ain't working anymore. I'm going to try this, and I have no clue whether it's going to work or not, but I am willing to leave an old way of behavior behind. I'm willing to put myself in the hands of somebody who, like a psychologist or a close friend, or a process like a group setting. I'm willing to place myself in the hands of people who I'm going to trust, have my best interest, and I'm going to do my best to follow what they're offering, and then see what happens. That's what happened to me in this work, and I have a lot of opinions about how that happened, and those opinions may or may not conform with reality. I don't know, but I certainly couldn't tell you what was going on when it was going on. All I could do is let it happen. And so we make conclusions
and
like there's
intentional living.
Go ahead.
Intentional living, the way I see it, is giving people the opportunity to start something different from where they're at. Not having to like get anything and then, okay, now we're going to go. It's this foundation of, and it's more of a feeling tone, emotional state than it is a cognitive experience.
Right.
And you know, I've used the term lean forward, and that leaning forward means open, curious to what's going on, how to recreate this. An example of that, first time I heard myself say, "Hi, my name's John, I'm an alcoholic," the next thought I had is I'm coming back, which was completely new because I didn't want to be there in the first place. But I'm coming back was a proactive thought, movement, inspiration. And I had no idea. I didn't qualify it. I didn't judge it. I didn't go, well, I'm coming back if they, I'm coming back when I'm coming back. And that came out of that source place, that original essence, energy of who I am. And then it gets complicated. And I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue in this process because I grow every day. I grow, I expand through the teaching of this. And I'm doing it for selfish reason, because when people are living their authentic life and expressing authentically, there's nothing of mine that they want. I'm safe, my daughter's safe, my grandson's safe, my daughters are safe. And it creates, I believe, the building block of that race consciousness community shift that is part of what, I don't know if it needs to happen, but that's happening to create us coming together in a different way.
I was reflecting on how this facilitates moving into those higher levels in Maslow's hierarchy of need. I mean, if I'm not physiologically safe, I'm not going to be able to develop any kind of emotional safety. So accountability actually helps us move to those higher levels of being able to live in the needs of manifesting self-actualization, because I've taken care of, or God and I have taken care of, my survival needs, my emotional needs, my belongingness needs. And I no longer fight to get just some of that, or or in my case, I learned to create substitutes for the real thing.
Right.
Fake love, fake accomplishment, they served to get me through year after year of my life, but I was only still surviving, not thriving. So I was still stuck at those lower levels that Maslow identified. Like, if I don't get those emotional needs fulfilled, I can't go higher. And I was stuck there. I couldn't get those emotional needs in a level of peace, satisfaction. And once I got into the accountability practice, that opened the door for again, I say higher power, for us to bring healing so that the emotional needs now felt right where they were. It's like I got my emotional needs met. Now I can move deeper into my humanity.
Yeah. Part of the accountability tree process, after the truth, emotion, I intend, is validation, self-validation. And I can see this in my relationship with my grandson, is that I'm capable of validating his frustration without taking it personal.
Right.
There's nothing, and I could not do that with my children. I am capable of listening to his 10 decibel scream and going, oh, he's frustrated, or that's the only way he knows how to ask for attention, or he's processing something, and I hold the space, and I do the guidance. This is appropriate. This is not appropriate. I do the holding the space for him, but I don't redefine his expression. I don't redefine what he should do or tell him this is what you need to do.
Well, the way I hear that, John, is that you are offering him the experience of unconditionality. You're not putting any condition on him to be in relationship with you.
Right.
And gosh, I wish I had experienced that as a kid. And most of us don't. It's an advanced capacity, and it could only come because you had come to some level of unconditionality for yourself.
Right. Yeah. Acceptance of where I'm at, and a focus of where I wanted to go, or a wanting, a desire to be
exactly
some other place.
Exactly. So we started this conversation of talking about the role of desire in our human growth and our humanity. And again, we're always wanting something. I'm always wanting something, and the way I can know what it is I'm wanting is I just see what's showing up in my life.
And settle into whatever the feeling tone is around me, or the feeling tone tells me, is offering me information about my situation, circumstance, what's happening, from my feeling body, my emotional body.
And then if I can be present with that, then I have the opportunity to be conscious and ask myself, what do I want? Do I want this? If I don't want this, what do I want? And then I get to say, okay, I want peace. And I may not know what peace is, but I know it ain't this.
It ain't that.
And so I set my intention, and when I set my intention, I engage those universal creative forces that were giving me the not peace. They will now give me the peace.
Right.
And like I said,
emotion.
Go ahead.
Our five senses offer us information about our relationship to the environment, people, places, and things for survival. Adding the emotional aspect of ourselves, emotional feeling body, simply offer us more information about what's happening to us in the moment. And the emotional information, now that I trust it, I don't deny it, diminish it, dismiss it, I sit with it. It's simply offering me information on a subconscious level that can bubble up into my consciousness now. If I'm feeling afraid or tension, what is this? And then it tells me, oh, this is where you're at. This is what's happening. This is whatever's going on. and there's an ease, there's a moment, there's space for me to just be and then serve. And right now I'm thinking about being with one of my daughters, or either one of my daughters, and just holding that space, where before our agreement was that we would do this behavior and cause chaos and separation. That's no longer my agreement, nor is it their agreement. So we just communicate differently. And I see them as sentient beings, not just my children. They're viable spirits having this human experience, and contributing where they've come to contribute, and I can support that. I can watch it. I can whatever they want. And it's there you go. It's a mini community, but raise consciousness. And we'll just.
But that's where it starts.
That's where it starts.
That's where it starts. Got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So, John, as we come to the end of our time together, I want to let people know that, number one, John's facilitating a new weekly meeting at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time on Saturday mornings. So in addition to the Rusty Nail Club meetings that we sponsor here in Sacramento on Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday evenings, you're also invited to check out the meeting John facilitates on Saturday mornings. And if you want information about our Rusty Nail meetings, my email address will be at the end of the video, or the end of the podcast. John's, I'm going to throw this up here, John. This is the flyer for the workshop John is also going to be doing on Saturday, March 13th. So a week from the first Saturday. I don't know when this will be published, so maybe this the upcoming Saturday, but Saturday, March 13th at 11 o'clock Pacific time. We call it Bring Your Own Lunch, but it's a Zoom meeting. And the Zoom meeting address is there, and that's also the address for John's Saturday morning meeting. So these are open to anybody who would like to learn more about this process that we talk about here, or would like to actually participate in it, because its real value is in participation and not just learning about it. Or another way to say it, the best way to learn about it is to do it. So everyone's invited, and so please feel free to take advantage of that. We'd love to see you. So John, I'll leave you with as always, the last word.
That workshop kind of snuck up on me. When we planned it, it was out in the future. Now it's like, oh my God, it's a week away. So I'm excited about that.
I hope you can come.
Yeah, hope I'm there. This is, it's not the end all be all. I see it as a starting point. I'm offering a foundation so that whoever uniquely, each individual can manifest their uniqueness, genuineness, and revel in their particular contribution, how that shows up for them. I don't know, the word is humbled at the response to all this, and I'm grateful. So that's what I got to say.
I appreciate that, John. I appreciate your time, and appreciate everything I've learned from you. And so we're going to wrap this up for today, and we thank everybody for participating. Hope to see you at the workshop or at one of our meetings.